Hello, and thank you for attending this Supervisor Payroll training. In today's training, we'll be discussing what the expectation and responsibilities are for time card approvers here at the Resource Exchange. Your payroll team consists of the payroll manager and payroll specialist, and our contact information is listed on this slide. The quickest way to get a question answered is to send your inquiry to payroll@tre.org or TRE Payroll via MS Teams. You're always welcome to reach out to us individually as well. We are here to support you. Congratulations on your promotion to supervisor. If you haven't already, you will be assigned client-side access to Paycom. You will use the client-side login to manage your team and approve time cards, and the ESS login to log your own time and manage your personal information. You can easily toggle between the two accounts while you're in system. When you log into your ESS, you'll notice that the notification bell has an alert indicating you have been assigned several trainings to get you acquainted with the Paycom system. Each path consists of a written manual, a video, and short quizzes to help you learn the system. Please complete these prior to the first pay cycle that you will be approving time cards. Additional trainings can be found in the Learning section of your ESS, or you can reach out to the payroll team for further assistance. It is imperative that all payroll items are approved and ready for processing no later than 9 a.m. Monday of a payroll week. Payroll items include timesheets, time off requests, expense reimbursements, and personal action forms, which we call PAFs. Payroll has very tight deadlines to meet in order to ensure all employees are paid by Friday, and the payroll process cannot begin until every timesheet has been approved each cycle. Timesheets are locked from all edits once the payroll process has begun to ensure the integrity of the data that we pull in for processing. You play an integral role in the front end of this process, so please coordinate with your team to ensure that they all have their payroll items in the system in a timely manner, which allows you to approve all items by 9 a.m. on Mondays. One of the first things to look out for when approving timesheets is to ensure that all members of your team have submitted and approved their timesheets. Keep an eye out for employees who might have terminated during the pay cycle and who might not appear on your roster if your filter is set to view only active employees. Employees must approve their timesheets before you make your approval. The DOL and FLSA put the burden of responsibility of keeping accurate time cards on employers, so we have implemented this approval process as a hedge of protection for TRE against potential lawsuits. Employees are responsible for entering time onto timesheets, and supervisors are responsible for reviewing for accuracy prior to making their own approvals. The next item you want to look for when approving timesheets are the correct usage of pay type codes. Besides work time, employees can use a variety of different non-worked pay types to document time each pay cycle. PTO is a commonly used pay type that employees can request to make up missed time. You can view an employee's accrual balance very easily via the Accrual Information tab to ensure they have enough PTO to use for the cycle. After completing 1 year of employment, TRE will grant employees their birthday off. Our policy states that if a birthday falls on Sunday through Thursday, the employee is granted 9 hours, and if it falls on a Friday or Saturday, they are granted 4 hours in accordance with our business hours. Please note, in the system, birthdays are set up as live accruals that will deposit on the actual day of with a default of 9 hours. It is the employee's and the supervisor's responsibility to update the default of 9 hours to 4 hours when a birthday falls on a Friday or Saturday. TRE also offers bereavement and jury duty time to employees who qualify. Please see our policies on these benefits for more information. Holidays are auto-populated onto time cards by the system and are prorated to FTE. Floating holidays are another TRE benefit that allows employees flexibility with time off and replace Martin Luther King Jr. Day, President's Day, Memorial Day, Independence Day, and Labor Day. Most of these holidays will award credit for a 9-hour business day, since they replace holidays that occur on Sunday through Thursday, and in years where they land on a Friday or Saturday, will be adjusted as needed. For ease in management and administration, they are also set up in the system as live accruals to be awarded on the day of the replacement holiday for use on the day of or before the end of the calendar year. Per our policy, these are not a bank of hours and must be taken in full day increments, meaning these days are use it or lose it, so encourage your employees to use them wisely. All time must be recorded on timesheets to comply with DOL FLSA requirements, so in the event that an employee misses recording time worked, they can reach out to you with the details of that time, and you can use the retro pay types to document that missed time and get the employee paid in the next available pay cycle. When you use the retro codes, you must always include a comment documenting the details of the employee's missed time. PTO, holidays, birthdays, and floating holidays are all designed to be accrued and deposited to an employee based on their current FTE. TRE's policy states that it is not allowable for a non-worked pay type to pay an employee above their FTE. So although the system is automated for many of these recurring pay types, it is imperative that supervisors check timesheets for accuracy and make adjustments as needed. The work that many of our employees do does not fit into the silo of one department, and we have a process in place to document that time. Upon request, the payroll team can open access for an employee to record time worked in a department other than their home. For non-exempt employees, it's as simple as choosing the correct labor allocation drop-downs when adding punches to their time cards. For exempt employees, they'll also need to choose the correct labor allocations from the drop-down choices, and additionally, we'll need to update the pay type code to RGN, time outside of home department. Current department codes and allocation information can be found in SharePoint, or you can reach out to the payroll team with questions. To help ensure an employee is receiving the correct pay and using the correct labor allocations, use the pay cycle totals on the bottom of each timesheet as a guide. If you're unsure of an employee's FTE, you can find this information on their Form 1 in Paycom. The DOL places the burden of timekeeping on the employer, and so it is imperative that we document all time worked via timesheets. If a non-exempt employee misses documenting time worked on their timesheet prior to the pay cycle closing, they must still be paid for that time and it must be recorded in Paycom. In these events, employees should reach out to their supervisor with the details of the missed time to include date, time, and any labor allocation information if that's necessary. Supervisors must then use the retro pay types, either regular or overtime, to record that time onto the current pay cycle and enter a comment with the date and time details. PTO is the most commonly used non-worked pay type that employees use to ensure they receive a full check within a cycle where they don't work their full FTE. Employees must submit all PTO requests via the Time Off Request section of Paycom, and ideally, employees should enter requests prior to taking time off. Of course, some PTO requests cannot be made in advance, but you should encourage your employees to submit them as soon as they return to work. Alternatively, you can add PTO to an employee's time card in the client-side access of Paycom. We have 2 sets of accrual profiles set up in the system to ensure that all of our employees accrue PTO correctly, and therefore we have 2 sets of PTO codes. Please ensure you are using the right set of codes when entering PTO for an employee. The profile the majority of our employees fall into is the full-time and exempt profile. This includes all employees who are at a 1.0 FTE, as well as all exempt employees regardless of their FTE. This profile accrues a set rate of hours once a month on the first check of the month. The second accrual profile is the part-time non-exempt profile, which is only assigned to hourly employees whose FTE is less than 1.0. Per our policy, the accruals for these folks is prorated based on their timesheet hours, so they accrue each pay period. You can quickly see an employee's time off availability via the Accruals tab on the timesheet, so you can ensure an employee has enough time to use. Please note, our policy states that an employee must use accrued PTO prior to taking unpaid time off. Please reach out to the payroll department if you have an exempt employee who might need to take unpaid time off, as the DOL and FSLA protects the salary of exempt workers, and deductions may only be made in certain circumstances. Let's head over to Paycom to review the timesheet for a test employee together. As you can see, for the first week of this pay cycle, they worked their full FTE. In the second week, they took some time off of Friday, but that time off is putting them over their FTE, so we'll have to make that adjustment. In order to do so, click on the PTO line, and then adjust the hours accordingly to make them meet their FTE. Hit Update Hours, and you'll see that they are back to their FTE. If you're unsure about how much PTO they had, you can always navigate over to the Accrual Information tab, and it'll show you what they have available. As you can see, this test employee has a total of 9 hours available. They have 6 hours that they've used this current pay cycle. They don't have anything requested for the future, so that leaves them with 3 hours available for future use. This is also a spot where you can look at history for the different accruals that are set up for this employee. Let's head back over to the timesheet. And we can use the pay period totals on the bottom to make sure that everything looks right. So Test worked 65.5 hours in home and then had some hours allocated outside of their home department. You can view the allocation information for each punch in the allocation columns on the inside. And we'll see that allocation here. If Test were an exempt employee, we have some information missing for them that we need to correct. They did not use the RGN code, so if you want to make that correction for them, you can click on the In Punch. In the Pay Code section, look for RGN. You can either type it in or you can scroll down. It is alphabetical. And then if you need to make any adjustments to their allocations, you can do so here as well. Let's go ahead and update that punch. And we'll check our pay period totals. It still looks like there's a little bit of time that is not coded to RGN, and that's the back end of that same punch. So let's go ahead and fix that side. So we'll click on the In Punch from when they came back from lunch. Type in or scroll for RGN. Update the punch. And check out our pay period totals to make sure everything looks good. Let's say that Test had reached out to us and said that they had missed putting in some time the last pay cycle. We'll need to enter that into this current pay cycle, and the best practice to do that is to head over to Add Hours, pick a date in the current pay cycle. I like to use a date that the employee did not work so that it's easier for me to overview the timesheet. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Sunday. You'll also need to navigate to the timesheet, to the pay cycle, where the employee missed time. In order to do that, you can use the previous button up here or the drop down to whatever the previous pay cycle is. Since this is a test employee, I don't have it in there, so we won't go there. But you would need to navigate to the past pay cycle to determine whether you're going to use an overtime code or the regular retro code. We do have two in here. This first retro code is going to be for time worked, for regular time worked. The retro OT code is going to be if that time fell into overtime and so the employee needs the premium overtime rate. So let's say that this was just regular time. You'll then add in the total time missed. And then in the comments section, you must document the date and the time that the employee did not put on their timesheet. Misdocumenting time worked on 10:30 from 12 to 2. Add those hours. And again, let's look at our pay period totals. And we'll see that on top of the 80 hours for this current pay cycle, we have an additional 2 hours from last pay cycle. Once all of your corrections are made, you will approve the timesheet, and once all of your corrections are made and after the employee has approved their timesheet, then you can go ahead and make your approval. When you make your approval, please make sure that you are approving the entire pay cycle, all 14 days. If you're making your approvals on Friday, the last day of your work, make sure to include Saturday. And if you're doing it on Payroll Monday, make sure that you are choosing only through the end of the pay cycle. When you've made that selection, hit approve. And you are good to go. When an employee goes on an approved leave, you will have to document their time off on their timesheets for them. As this time off needs to be tracked for FMLA purposes, there are a different set of codes that will both decrement the employee's current PTO bank and track this time for our HR team. They are FMP, FPT, and FUT. Please be sure to reach out to HR when you have an employee going out on leave, as they would be the point persons to coordinate this leave with you and the employee going out on leave. Let's talk about some information specific to non-exempt employees. Although we bear the burden of record keeping in the eyes of the DOL, we have implemented policies to ensure that each employee shares in that responsibility and can reinforce best practices to make sure we stay in compliance. First, encourage your staff to complete their timesheets on a daily basis, and most importantly, make sure your employees approve their timesheets before you approve them. The employee's approval is a crucial step in us being able to confidently process payroll and will provide us with security if there is an event of an audit or inquiry. After an employee has approved their timesheet and it is your turn to review and approve, make sure that the non-worked pay types such as holidays or PTO are not putting the employee over their FTE, resulting in an overage of their regular check. If you do see that a non-worked pay type results in an FTE overage, it is your responsibility to adjust the non-worked pay type down to meet the employee's regular FTE. Only worked hours, usually overtime, may result in an employee receiving more than their regular check amount. Per DOL, overtime is defined as time worked over 40 hours in a work week or 12 hours in a day. Lunch and breaks are another DOL item that we must monitor and ensure we're in compliance with for non-exempt employees. For any day that an employee works over 5 hours, they must be allowed to take a minimum of a 30-minute lunch period, free from all duties, and this must be recorded on the timesheet. It is forbidden for employees to work off the clock or not log time worked. We must pay employees for all time worked, so these instances must be documented immediately onto timesheets using the retro pay codes. Please reach out to the HR team for additional guidance on counseling employees who repeatedly work off the clock or if additional action must be taken. Per our policy, exempt employees are only required to complete timesheets to document time worked outside of their home department and non-worked time off. If there is ever an instance where an exempt employee might need to take unpaid time off, please reach out to the payroll department to coordinate whether or not a deduction in paid is allowed. When reviewing the timesheet for exempt employees documenting time worked outside of their home department, please ensure that they are also using the RGN pay type code as well as updating the labor allocation codes for the appropriate department. There is an auto decrement set up in the back end of Paycom that will autofill an exempt employee's FTE hours into payroll to ensure they get their full salary, and it accounts for the non-worked items on the timesheet. The auto decrement will only work correctly if the RGN code is used to document time worked outside of home. Failure to use the RGN code will result in that time worked outside of the home department not being counted, and instead will add that time back to the home department. Please make sure to understand the proper use of this code. Exempt staff are also required to approve their timesheets each pay cycle, even if it's empty. An approved empty timesheet is an indication that the employee worked their full FTE hours for the pay cycle and did not take any PTO or any other non-worked time off. PAFs are how we request and document employee changes in Paycom. PAFs can be entered and viewed via the Talent Management module, and there's even a way to batch enter PAFs for multiple employees undergoing the same changes. HR will handle the input for all new hires, status changes such as terminations, and leaves, though you must reach out to them to initiate the process. Supervisors can enter PAFs for items like team and FTE changes. Approval workflow is built into each type of PAF and will be automatically directed to the next person who needs to review and approve. Most PAFs require 4 approvals before finalization, so it is imperative that these items are submitted well before their effective date and approved by all approvers prior to the 9 a.m. Monday payroll deadline. If you're in line to approve a PAF, please review and sign as soon as possible so it gets to the next person and moves along the line in the most efficient way possible. TRE will reimburse employees for mileage and other expenses incurred on behalf of the company within reason and with supervisor approval. View and manage your employees' expenses on the expense dashboard located in the expense management section of Paycom. An employee who travels out of the county for work or training purposes may be reimbursed for meals and incidentals. Limits are based on the county where the employee travels to, based on per diem rates found on the GSA website. These rates should be reviewed and discussed with the employee prior to travel. All expense reimbursement requests must be accompanied with a valid itemized receipt in order to be approved. So encourage your employees to keep all receipts when incurred when traveling. Please note, as a tax-exempt nonprofit organization, we will not reimburse employees for taxes incurred or alcohol purchases. These amounts should be excluded from the requested reimbursement amount. A copy of our tax-exempt certificate is available in SharePoint on the check request site under Information. Mileage rates are automatically built into the system, but are announced each fiscal year and usually correspond with either the state or federally posted mileage rates. In order to qualify as a reimbursable trip, the following items must be documented: date of travel, start and end point, total miles, and the purpose of business travel. Please note that employees might record a trip and then make modifications to that trip. So when reviewing these items, you might need to accept the modified trip prior to approving. Labor allocation profiles extend to expenses, so please audit expenses to ensure they are being coded to the correct department. Expenses are processed as payroll items, and all items that are approved by 9 a.m. Monday of payroll week will be paid to employees that Friday. Please see our travel reimbursement policy for more information. For more details on our company policy, we suggest you review the topics on this slide. All of our TRE policies are located on the TRE General SharePoint page, as well as on a dedicated Policies tab on the General TRE chat channel. As always, the TRE payroll team is here to help with any questions or clarification you might need. Thank you for your time and attention. Have a wonderful rest of your day.